Behold, Varkholm, before the Piglin invasion began. Memorize these borders, for many may cease to exist. Every kingdom, republic, confederation, and tribe has felt the consequences of this historic catastrophe. Do not think yourselves immune. You could be next. The first hour of the surprise invasion caught everyone off guard. No one expected to be fighting a war of this scale on their own homeland. Across Varkholm kingdoms, republic, confederation, and tribes rushed to mobilize their armies. Yet mobilization takes time, and their forces would not be fully prepared for several more hours. By then, the invaders had already gained a foothold. By the second hour, the Piglins' hold on the land began to expand, however slightly. With each passing minute, more villages, roads, and strongholds fell under their control. Yet the armies of Varkholm were still unprepared. Mobilization was underway, but the soldiers had not yet assembled in force. All they could do was watch as the slaughter drew nearer. By the fifth hour, the first city of the Federation of Ravens Hollow had fallen under siege. At the same time, the capital of Pitcairn was nearly split in two as enemy forces carved their way through its streets. Still, the armies of Varkholm were nowhere to be seen. Mobilization continued, but precious time was running out. With no soldiers arriving to save them, the citizens were forced to take up arms themselves. Militia groups formed overnight, barricades rose across towns and cities, and ordinary people became the first line of defense against the invasion. By the 10th hour, the situation had grown increasingly dire. The Federation of Ravens Hollow had already lost one of its 4 major cities, while 2 more were now under siege. The invaders' advance showed no signs of slowing. To the east, Ironwatch came under attack. Unlike many other settlements, however, it possessed a permanent garrison. Its defenders quickly manned the walls and prepared for a prolonged defense, buying precious time for the surrounding regions. Farther north, Pitcairn suffered a devastating blow. Its capital was officially declared lost after hours of brutal fighting. Yet the battle was far from over. Resistance fighters, militia groups, and isolated military units continued to contest the city street by street, refusing to surrender what remained of their homeland. By the 13th hour, the Federation of Ravens Hollow had effectively fallen. Its cities were overrun, its government shattered, and its organized defenses destroyed. All that remained were scattered militia groups, fighting a hopeless battle against overwhelming odds. Most would not survive the days to come. Across the front, the invaders unveiled a terrifying new tactic. Ghasts were deployed in large numbers, carrying Piglin warriors over enemy lines and deep into defended territory. What had begun as a conventional invasion was rapidly evolving into a war without safe rear areas. The Piglins had effectively become airborne assault troops, capable of striking almost anywhere. Meanwhile, the siege of Ironwatch grew more desperate with each passing hour. The defenders held their ground, but relentless attacks and mounting casualties threatened to break the outpost resistance. Pitcairn's situation was equally grim. Much of the nation had been lost, and enemy forces continued to push deeper into its territory, yet hope remained. Amid the chaos, a small relief army had finally assembled. Though modest in size, it represented the first organized counteroffensive of the war, and had already begun its march toward Pitcairn. By the end of the first day, Varkholm had suffered a devastating blow. The Piglins were far stronger than anyone had anticipated. Their invasion was coordinated, relentless, and terrifyingly effective. Questions spread across the continent. What did they want from this war? Conquest, resources, or was it staged? Despite the chaos, the war continued. The siege of Ironwatch raged on, though the defenders received a small but welcome reinforcement. A cavalry detachment from Pitcairn's newly formed army broke through enemy lines, providing much-needed supplies, soldiers, and hope to the exhausted garrison. As for Pitcairn itself, the situation had finally begun to improve. After a full day of retreat and desperate fighting, its defenders succeeded in halting the Piglin advance. In several sectors, they even managed to reclaim small stretches of territory. The gains were modest, but they proved something invaluable. The invaders could be stopped. For the first time since the invasion began, the people of Varkholm had a reason to believe that victory might still be possible. By day 2, all the morale from yesterday had died out like fading flames. The situation in Ravens Hollow only got worse, and the 4 kingdoms that made it up officially declared it a lost zone. The spiritualist Snow Tribe came under attack from the Piglins, but the frozen north proved just as deadly as the defenders. Endless snowfall buried supply lines, blizzard scattered armies, and Piglin soldiers froze to death in large numbers. The tribe was still being pushed back, but the invaders were paying heavily for every mile. Meanwhile, the pirates took advantage of the chaos, seizing islands and coastal territories for themselves while everyone else was focused on survival. That ended when a fleet of Piglin ghasts arrived over the pirate capital. After a lot of talking, arguing, and threats, the Piglin commander finally delivered his ultimatum.
Allow us to use your islands as air bases and naval bases, or be crushed beneath the Empire.
The Pirate Council's answer was short. Then come crush us. The bombardment began before the meeting was even over. In Pitcairn, the war was going both ways. The defenders managed to encircle an entire Piglin army, but elsewhere they were steadily losing ground. Every victory seemed to be matched by another defeat. As night fell on the second day, fires burned across the horizon. What had begun as an invasion was quickly becoming a war that could consume the entire world. By day 3, the pirates was already feeling the weight of the invasion. Piglin forces struck quickly and hard, pushing deeper into their territory with gassed support. Even with their defiant response to the ultimatum, unease spread among the pirates as the war turned out to be far less manageable than expected. Ironwatch continued to weaken, its defenses thinning and its soldiers growing exhausted under constant pressure. Not far away, a Piglin strike squad was sent toward Knox News, moving with unusual urgency. Meanwhile, in Pitcairn, Varkholm's armies were pushing forward, making solid gains and forcing the Piglins to fall back in several sectors for the first time in days. Day 4 brought no major shifts on the surface, but the scale of the war was beginning to change. In Raven's Hollow, the Piglins assembled a massive force, 3 large armies, and 1 smaller contingent, before marching toward the coast. Unable to cross by sea, and lacking enough ghasts for airlift, they attempted to traverse the frozen waters instead. But Noxian forces were already waiting. Cannons tore into the ice, cracking it apart beneath advancing ranks. Whole formations plunged into the freezing sea, where armor dragged them under, and the cold finished the rest. At Ironwatch, the siege pressure eased slightly as frontline Piglin units were pushed back, but the outpost itself remained under strain. Knox News was struck directly. The station was seized and forced into broadcasting under Piglin control. The spiritualist snow tribe continued to hold, though they were slowly being pushed back. Ice spikes and natural barriers blocked gassed movement, forcing the Piglins into narrow, brutal paths where the cold killed as many as the defenders. In Pitcairn, scattered Piglin armies began merging to avoid being picked apart. The consolidation helped their numbers, but it also exposed how stretched thin they had become, turning earlier advantages into growing instability. Day 5 showed almost all resistance in Raven's Hollow is gone, yet the Piglin armies there were recovering. But they did send gassed paratroopers to land in the pirates' main island. Noxia seems to have taken the chance to nav neighboring islands as well. There was no movement in the spiritual tribe, leading the generals of Varkholm to think the small army going through the ice spikes froze to death. With Ironwatch, the defenders were getting a weight lifted off their shoulders as Piglins were getting pushed back even further. With Knox News, he was now fully under Piglin control, yet was it worth it? With the portal near Pitcairn, the Piglin forces were forced to merge into one big army for a last defense. Some may say they are scrapping the barrel. By day 7, the nether portal threatening Pitcairn was finally sealed. The Piglin presence around it collapsed almost immediately, and in the aftermath, soldiers recovered strange artifacts from the site. Nox Tech wasted no time securing them for study, treating them as a potential breakthrough in understanding Piglin operations. But the victory came at a steep cost. With Raven's Hollow already fallen, Piglin forces were now free to push south, unopposed, and they were beginning preparations to turn north as well. At Knox News, a strike force was dispatched to eliminate the remaining Piglin presence. The response was swift and decisive, clearing the area and restoring control. In Ironwatch, the defensive line had been driven back entirely to a narrow mountain range. What remained of the fortress state was now clinging to terrain rather than territory. The spiritualist snow tribe began to advance for the first time in days, pushing back weakened Piglin units. But something about the ease of the progress didn't feel right. Then came the realization, why was the strongest front collapsing so easily? Something is wrong.